Could you please start by introducing yourself and sharing your job title?
My name is Angus Macpherson and I'm the Police and Crime Commissioner for Wiltshire. And I ought to say at this stage that Wiltshire is the county of Wiltshire, which Swindon is in. So actually I've changed the title to the Police and Crime Commissioner for Wiltshire and Swindon, just to make sure that Swindon feels included, because there are two local authorities now. One is Wiltshire and one is Swindon. And so to be inclusive of both, but technically I'm just for Wiltshire.
Being the Police and Crime Commissioner must be an interesting job. Could you tell our readers a bit about what it involves and the kind of things that you work on?
Yeah. The job of the Crime Commissioner is to make sure there's an effective and efficient policing service to the county. And primarily my job is to hire a chief constable, and if necessary to fire one, which one hopes isn't going to be the answer. So having done that, my job second to that is to write a police and crime plan for the county, and that's quite a lengthy document that I published about every 4 years at the beginning of my term, which is for 4 years. And it sets out how I think, having consulted with the public, how the police should work in the county, what their objectives are. And so the Wiltshire Police has objectives set by me on behalf of the public, you, and objectives set by the Home Secretary on behalf of the country. So there's a national imperative and a local imperative. And then in order to pay for that, I get money from the government, which is our money, but it goes through the government. And then I set an amount each year, which is collected through the rates that we pay as householders in the county. And so I get those two sources of income. And that I commission, that's where the commissioning comes into the title, I commission the police service, Wiltshire Constabulary, to do things for us, to keep us safe, which is the primary job of the police, and secondarily to catch people who are not making us safe. And also I commission other services like forensics. That's not done by Wiltshire Police, it's done by other people, and so I commission those services as well. So primarily it's to give an efficient and effective police service to the people of Wiltshire and Swindon, and all that goes into doing that, but most of it's done by Wiltshire Police.
And how did you get the role of Police and Crime Commissioner, and had you always wanted to do this for a living?
I hadn't always wanted to do it, but about 30 years ago, quite a long time ago, I was appointed a magistrate in Swindon. And so I sat for a long time in the courthouse here in Swindon as a magistrate and saw a lot of comings and goings and the changes in crime. And then about 20 years ago probably, I applied to sit on what was called the Police Authority, and that was the governing body of policing then, and that was made up of councillors from Wiltshire and councillors from Swindon and magistrates, and my colleagues in the magistracy appointed me as one of 2 representatives on that authority. So I was doing that for about 8 years. And then the government suggested that we did away with police authorities and we had a commissioner. And my career was as a chartered accountant, but I'd spent a lot of time with the police as a sort of secondary role. And I thought it was really, really interesting and something I'd like to do. So I stood for it now nearly 8 years ago and was reappointed by the public 4 years ago, and my term finishes in May next year.
What have been the high points and low points in your current job and over your longer career?
I suppose the high point is the point at which you're most active and you're running around, and the high point is for many the low point, and that was the Novichok incident in Salisbury last year. Awful for Salisbury, awful for the Skripals and for Dawn, who lost her life. But as far as activity and doing things, it was, you know, a really busy time for Wiltshire Police and for me, not least because, as I said, I'm in charge of the money, and that was costing a lot of money on a day-to-day basis. And so one of the high points for me will be that we came through that very well. A lot of pressure on our staff and on the budget, but I managed to get £10.5 million repaid by the government to Wiltshire, so it didn't affect the money that's for policing every day in Swindon and Wiltshire, but it did affect the health and well-being, because people did a lot of overtime and so forth, and so it's brought into focus that. And we've done a lot more around that. So I think the highlight will be that. The second highlight is actually taking this role in the first place, because it hadn't existed. There was no, we're here in the workshops here. It's where new businesses start, and you start with a room that's got nothing in it. You just got a table and a chair. And we started a bit like that, and so we had to design the note paper, design the website, appoint staff, move forward. So it started as a blank sheet of paper, and we moved forward from that. That was really exciting, to set up an office of a police and crime commissioner from scratch. Just, there were a couple of lines in an Act of Parliament that said you'll have this is the role, but we set it up around that, and so that was exciting. And some of the stuff that we've done that's very different to other parts of the country, I think is exciting as well, and especially around restorative justice, around complaints and so forth, which I think we've done stuff that's really novel and exciting, and is quite often being copied by other people up and down the country.
What do you think are the key issues around Swindon that affect young people, and what's being done about them?
One of the key priorities for policing is to keep people safe and protect them from crime. But what we are increasingly doing in the police service is running around after the crime has happened. And I think part of that is because youth services have declined considerably. So youth services is one thing I think is something I would like to see more of in Swindon, and indeed Wiltshire, and indeed the country, but I'll stick with Swindon. And the other thing is a concern over the change from local authority control of schools to the academies that are now prevalent in education. My concern there is that academies are businesses, that we're all in business, whether we're running a charity or a police, but we have money coming in and we want results as a result of our stewardship of that money. And I think the measure of success in education is now around the number of people that passed the exams at different levels. And I believe that education is much broader than just exams. And I would really like to see academies and schools and education inspected, not just by Ofsted, not just in terms of their results, but in terms of how they've looked after people from the day they joined the organisation to the day they left. So when people are excluded from academies, I want the academy to be responsible for that person, even when they're excluded. So it's a much more holistic look at education. And for me, that's what the big challenge is for policing and society. And my role is about policing, but I try and put effort into looking at things that support young people particularly, because if we don't support young people become older, and if they haven't gained skills and inclusion into society while they're younger, they're building up issues and problems and baggage that will come to a point later. So one of the very small projects that we've done is a youth bus, or a youth van, not a bus. And that was something operated in Swindon. I bought a bus, a van like a delivery van, has slide-up sides, and that was run by Youth for Christ in Swindon for a long time, and went out to where people were, whether it's on the green in Stratton or in a parish hall and so forth. And they set up, and the sides of the van come up, and there's a couple of PlayStations, and in the back of the van there's footballs and things. And it was a mobile youth club for young people, with a moral compass as well. And that worked for a number of years in Swindon. And just yesterday, that's now transferred to Devizes, still in the county, that bus, and it's been rebranded, and it's still out there working, and it's now working around the villages in whole of North Wiltshire. And I think that's just one example of making inclusion for young people. And I think that's the important thing, is that they're included, they're not excluded from the parish hall or the village hall, but they're members of the community, and we address that. And that's probably what I think is the major aspect that troubles me for the support that society gives young people as we move forward.
Now that Boris Johnson is Prime Minister, do you think he's going to do enough to make sure that we've got enough police officers on our streets?
Well, just last week he announced we're going to have 20,000 police officers extra, and that's a great thought. But politicians tend to say things and then think about the detail behind it. So as we sit here today, there's been no announcement as to where the money's coming from to pay you, and I've got to, if I recruit officers, I have to pay them. And we're working towards that ambition to have more police officers, but 50% of Wiltshire police are not officers. They don't carry warrant cards, because actually policing is broader than just the power that's given to you by a warrant card. And so many of our investigators are investigating crime, but when it comes to making the arrest, that's done by someone with a warrant card. So having 20,000 more police officers is perhaps a political statement. Maybe we need to know the detail about how we're going to pay. Is it just officers, or is it 20,000 people in policing? Or is it 20,000 officers plus the 15,000 extra people that will be needed to support those 20,000 officers? So a lot of detail as we sit here today, just a week after the announcement. There's a lot of detail we need to get. I welcome the announcement, but I do need to see the detail. And next year, the training for officers will be different. There'll be a new national training scheme, and I've made arrangements with the university to train these, the normal intake of people. and I don't, as we sit here today, know if they can cope with their the extra people coming in. And it takes about 18 months to train, just like, you know, you're an apprentice here within this group. Police officers effectively do an apprenticeship, a degree apprenticeship of learning and then going out and doing part of it in the role and then coming back into the classroom. And that goes on for about 18 months, 2 years. So it's a long process. I can't just get them tomorrow. And as we sit here today, I don't know how they're going to be paid, and I don't know how many people will be asked to get in Wiltshire. But yes, I welcome the move.
What other kind of things do you think should be done at local and national level?
I think policing needs to be done at a local level, but part of it has to be done at a national level. When I was talking a few moments ago, I said that I set the policing plan for Wiltshire, and the Home Secretary sends the policing plan nationally. And we do need to do things more nationally, and we're getting there slowly. The College of Policing is setting the standards, and our police people will be doing new exams to qualify, and that'll be a nationally monitored. We're doing the forensics work. We don't have Wiltshire forensics anymore, we have Southwest forensics. And so all the fingerprints and the digital stuff is going through that regional basis. And I think that will move towards a national in time. So we need local policing, we need people, whether they carry a warrant card or not is a different matter. They could well be PCSOs or civilian staff who know the people, who know the area, who know the shops, the shopkeepers, the young people who go into the schools. That's got to be local because it needs to be consistent. They don't want someone different going in every week. But crime doesn't stop at the borders of Wiltshire, and you know, the Thames isn't a barrier to crime around here. And so we have to recognise that the front line of policing today is in the front room, in your bedroom, where you're sitting surfing the internet. That's the front line of crime today, and that doesn't know any boundaries. And so much of the digital enabled crime that we're dealing with has its base millions of miles, hundreds of miles away. It doesn't know boundaries, and so it has to be dealt with on a national basis, but delivered locally. And so it's very much a change, and we have to move towards that, and we are doing that. But I think that has to be at a national level, but delivered locally. And that's the issue that we're really grappling with at the moment.
Do you believe that in 20 years' time there will still be the increase in crime rates that we're currently experiencing?
I think there'll be an increase in crime rates because crime changes. We've seen massive increase in cyber-enabled cybercrime. That's increasing because actually it didn't happen 20 years ago. And we're seeing decreases in other crime. You know, some of the rural crimes they're just announcing at the moment that that's actually going down. Very smallly going down, but it's going down. The crime rates are very much dependent on several things. One is the amount of effort society puts in to preventing crime. And I said at the beginning, it's the police's job in part to prevent crime, not to catch criminals. And so we need to be doing more prevention work. And if we do that prevention work right up front, whether that's working with young people, engaging them in society, making them part of society, we won't get an increase in crime when they grow older. And if the economy is strong, part of crime is driven by an economy that, you know, people haven't got jobs, haven't got money. And so, will we see an increase in crime rates? We could do, because crime rates are dependent on so many different different levers, and it's not just one thing. Part of the increase in crime rate that we've seen over the past 5-6 years has been actually making sure that police forces up and down the country count crime properly. And so in Wiltshire now we have a very high standard of crime recording, and our crime up and down the country has been increasing because people have been recording crime properly. We've seen a levelling off now because we were one of the early adopters of crime recording, so we've been recording it properly to a high standard for longer than many forces in the country. But will we see a crime? We will see I don't know what the crime will be in 20 years' time, but I'm sure there will be something new, something novel, and it'll go up, and then we need to be reacting to it. And the art of policing, of the intelligence of the commissioner, whoever the commissioner is in 20 years' time, is making sure that he or she and they are in the business of predicting where this will come from, and making sure that things are put in place to make sure that when these new trends arrive, they don't find that Wiltshire is a good place for them to develop.
What advice would you give to any of our young readers who might be interested in a career in the police force?
Well, as I said earlier, 50% of the people in Wiltshire Police don't carry a warrant card. So the first thing I would say is, when you think of policing and you think of a career in policing, don't necessarily think of a uniform and a warrant card and a fast car, because a lot of people who work for us, that is not their everyday experience. Increasingly, it's a graduate entry, and people are doing public service type courses to actually try the police. A number of people become special constables. Volunteer, don't get paid, but volunteer, have some training, and then join with a view to joining later. But I think we also need mechanics and technicians to keep our fleet on the road. We need forensic people to look at fingerprints and digital evidence as we move forward. We need investigators who investigate crime. So there's a massive number of opportunities out there, and I think for the young person looking for a career, I would say look in the whole breadth of what goes into policing, and try it out. Go on open days, go on experience days, and find out exactly how it works. And we have a team of people who are going out to schools and colleges and trying to get people interested in a career in policing. It is a great and varied career, but it doesn't have to. You don't have to be. Don't think of policing as just being a uniform and a warrant card and a fast car. There's so much more that it goes on, and as we develop up, and all the abuse of child sexual abuse on the internet and so forth, that's entirely different skill sets that are needed to deal with that. And so it's very broad, but go on the police website, have a look, phone up, ask for information, download information, and come along and try it.
Could you share some of your key lessons that you've learned over the years?
I think don't plan for the unexpected. We didn't know that Novichok was going to happen. The extra police officers coming in or being announced, we're not ready for those. It's planning for the unexpected, but also planning for the future, and not planning for. That's why doing the work with young people, that's planning for the future. It's not putting a sticking plaster on today, and things have got to be you've got to sit with it for a period of time. Like the youth van that goes out, you know, it's not going to go out and engage with one village and one lot of young people who are 14-year-olds at that point. You know, tomorrow's 14-year-olds are 13 today. And so the work we're doing has to be consistent, has to be year in, year out. And I think that's what I've learned, is that there's no simple straight answers. It's a myriad of answers. It's done consistently and it's done over time.
And finally, how could one of our readers get in contact with your office if they've got any further questions?
If they want to just go on the OPCC website, the link is there, the number's there, and phone up, and we'll certainly get someone to get in touch with them, whether that's from the Office of the Police and Crime Commissioner, or if necessary we can always pass that link through to the constabulary and they'll get in touch.